All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Uber to the Pits podcast. I am happy to be joined this week with Ed Jaeger and Austen Figueroa from a wonderful, actually, I guess, is it still considered new brand, even though it's been a few years, but new growing brand, Maglock. And we're going to also talk their new product with Logic. Guys, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. For the correction, the name of the company, the corporate name is Rainmaker Solutions.
Okay.
But the products under Rainmaker are Maglock and Fluid Logic and several other new products that are just going to start coming to the market as well.
Beautiful. So the way I like to get started, and I always ask my guests this is, like we mentioned a little bit pre-show, it always takes a special breed to want to work and be in motorsports. How did the two of you get started, or what was the initial bug into motorsports that led to your careers in it?
I think you might tell the story best.
Well, I started at a very young age, so my background comes from dirt track racing. My dad actually started racing motorcycles, and then with age comes cage. He moved into dirt track cars, and then that naturally progressed into me starting at the young age of 8 years old, racing dirt track cars, mini dwarf cars. Then moved up the ranks, go-karts. Then when I was 13, started stepping up to full-size cars. So I started in dwarf cars, coming out of go-karts, and then did 360 sprint cars, 410 sprints, USAC midgets, did Chili Bowl. Got some hardware there from the Alphabet Soup mains. And then when I was 18, progressed into starting Rainmaker with his background. He can talk more about it. His personal background come from motorcycles and the Genesis product.
I'm talking about when you and I met.
So him and I met. He says with a Snoopy blanket, but
he was that young.
I was 10 years old. Me and my mom, as many other young aspiring motorsports racers are, with their mom looking for sponsorship. We were seeking sponsorship, and just a couple blocks from my house in El Segundo was a company called Ironclad, just on Center Street in El Segundo, and we walked in there, as Ed says, me with my Snoopy blanket and my mom. And
did you have the pacifier too?
I just ditched that.
He had the lunch pail.
I just dropped the pacifier. But I had my Mario Andretti lunch pail and met Ed as he was walking out of one of his meetings. And being a young 10-year-old kid, couldn't do any financial backing, but they gave me all the gloves I could ever imagine and stickers as well. So I peppered and populated my race car in my room with Ironclad stickers, and I think every kid in my school had an Ironclad sticker on their work binders. So I had spread it within the town here.
Hey, you know what? It's all marketing, right? That's
Absolutely.
what it comes down to.
No one had a clue what Ironclad was, but they had seen the sticker, so I did my job.
It was in the hometown of El Segundo, but we had a different clientele. So my love of motorsports started at a young age as well. And although I didn't get into competitive motorsports like Austen did at a young age, my love was motorcycles. And so I started racing motorcycles at the Indian Dunes when I was a young teenager, and progressed from Indian Dunes to racing off-road. And that was pretty much my love. I first started doing off-road as I got older and I could afford to buy a ride and buy a driver's seat in off-road racing down in Mexico. So I did the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000 multiple times, trophy trucks to sportsman buggies. And I had pre-run the Baja 1000 starting when I was 25. So I got 35 years of doing the Baja 1000, starting in Tijuana and leaving my truck at the secured parking lot, in Tijuana, and throwing our leg over our bikes with me and my best buddies and riding all the way to Cabo San Lucas. And
that's cool. 5-6
days to get there, all off-road, visited every mission along the way, but really got Baja savvy and just had a real love for it. And this past year was the first time I hadn't gone in those 35 years. And it was basically because I needed to be here for work. But anyway, it was definitely those adventures that got me hooked on what we're doing today. And it was the genesis for this company. Even in my former world, when I ran Ironclad, we did a tremendous amount of sponsorship to motorsports drivers because that was my love. and it paid in spades. It was good for, we had sponsored people in NASCAR, we sponsored IndyCar, we had agreements with Andretti's and Rahal and a whole host of other people as well, but not nearly as big or as involved as this company.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about this company. But first of all, I gotta say, Austin, I've always wanted to try to get into like a dirt sprint car, just because going in and driving with no grip. And I've always wanted to do the Baja races. I was supposed to do it when I was 16. I could do it as a co-driver, but the neighbor that promised to do it when I was 16 sold his car 2 years prior. So there goes my Baja. I wouldn't say dreams, because there's still always the possibility. And I got to just find a way to get into a dirt track car and just try to drive around with no grip.
Definitely, it's my car. He's just money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get into what your guys' what I met you guys first with your first product, Maglock, and what it was that brought you to create Maglock, bring it to market, and the benefits of it.
Well, one of the things I was going to tell you real quick, by the way, is that he got me into a sprint car just a few short months ago, and it was thrilling, and I barely got into the throttle, and it was thrilling. It was spooky fast. And I would say that if there's an opportunity to do it again, he was able to, with his connections, host a few people to get behind the wheel of a sprint car at Paris?
Paris Auto Speedway.
At Paris.
Okay.
And when I got out of the car, I couldn't wait to get back in again. And it was, like I said, it was thrilling. It definitely kept your attention. That horsepower and absolutely grip, no brakes. If you weren't sideways, you weren't driving. So it was a lot of fun. I recommend it. So.
All right. Well, Austin, I might have to keep in touch with you on that purpose.
We threatened to pull together a group of people that keep saying, we want to go do it. So, the company is probably first known for Maglock, but the irony is that Maglock wasn't the first product. It's just the first product we brought to market. And a lot of that had to do with the influence of people that were around us at the time, like Ricky Johnson, and people who tested the fluid logic system first and said, boy, this is amazing. I can get water on demand, and it's programmable and hands-free. But I really like this magnetic connection that you've created. So while you're perfecting fluid logic, what if you just came out with this magnetic connection? And we had already called it Maglock, but he was saying, what if you just said, hey, Maglock air only, and get that to the market, which would have been a good for, because we learned along the way. And so that's the first forward-facing product in the market right now, which is Maglock Air. And that critical connection that you need to make from your helmet to your fresh air system inside your car, whether you're in sports car racing, NASCAR racing, or all forms of off-road racing or UTV pleasure driving, that critical connection is what we first were known for. And I'll let Austin break it down for you, because there's a lot of engineering in it.
Yeah.
And well, real quick, I just wanted, for people that don't know forced air and what it was, it's a rubber hose that goes to a system in your car that forces fresh air into your helmet, helps keep you cooler, clean air if you're racing off road. That was normally held on with a rubber piece around the forced air piece on your helmet. So for those that don't know what forced air is, that's just a brief history. Austin, I'll let you take it from there.
That's exactly right. It's the best way we describe it is the Hoover vacuum hose. So same way you would add on wedge on attachments on your vacuum cleaner to reach a corner in a room. That's how NASCAR drivers, any kind of closed cockpit motorsports car, that's how they were attaching their air hose to their heads. And if anyone's familiar with, being in a motorsports car, it gets extremely hot. And what happens to these pliable rubbers, these wedge-on rubbers, first thing that happens is they get hot, they expand, and they're falling off. So now you're battling, you're zip tying it on, guys duct tape them on, and then the heads of safeties in their divisions in these motorsports, they're not very happy seeing their drivers upside down, struggling to get out, getting yanked back in. Also the safety crews, safety officials trying to get a driver out of the car, whether he be conscious or unconscious, and now having to deal with a tether that is then literally duct taped to his head, trying to get that off. not impart any additional injuries in case there's a head and neck injury potential possibility. So that's where the maglock comes in. The way it's described is 2 concentric ring magnets that come together and pass the fluid. So of course, this is all FR, fire-resistant plastics. 2 concentric ring magnets come together. It's about 20 pounds of force straight on, so I can actually connect and pick up my helmet with it. But as soon as I crack it at an angle, the angular force, crack pressure, is exactly 10 pounds of force. So if you forget you're connected in your vehicle, or again, you're upside down, there's smoke, you're on fire, getting extracted by safety personnel, simply just pull and it breaks away. So you don't even have to worry about this connection being on your head as far as tying you to the vehicle. And then of course,
I was gonna say that was one of the most impressive demonstrations I ever saw in person, was when you guys first showed me this product. You're like, here, just try to pull it straight off. So you're sitting there, you're trying to break the piece, and then you're like, I'll just do it like this. And it's just like, it was the easiest thing to do at an angle. And it really was a struggle just going straight on.
Right. Absolutely. And then, we go one further and making it a complete kit so that, obviously this is a major safety item, used in NASCAR, used in IndyCar now, sports cars, trophy trucks, on and on. But then now it's a complete system. So part of the kit is the roof dock. So now when you're parked, whether you be, parked for the night, parked for the evening, or recreational, parked at the sand dune, you now dock your air hose to the roof of your vehicle. It's completely sealed. It's out of the way. You know exactly where it is. For example, the Ford GT's doing a driver change at Daytona. They know where their air hose is. Guy gets back in, takes off down pit road and limiter. He knows exactly where his air hose is. He can disconnect it and then connect to his helmet magnetically and quickly.
You guys really kept it with the KISS method.
Yes, we kept it simple.
That's exactly right.
Some of the technology that's built in this is that when these magnets come together, there is an O-ring on the hose side, and that O-ring seals this as well. So there's no loss to air from your pump system. There's no leakage of air. And we've also kept it so that the flow of air is not hindered at all. In fact, you get more air to the helmet as well. So your pumper is even more efficient.
Okay. And that really, especially more in off-road situations where you're getting a lot of dust and, you could go a few hundred miles before seeing any civilization. Having that fresh air is key.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and keeping it on your helmet is key. It's like Austen mentioned. I mean, you go through whoops and bumps and the things coming off you, or let's say you got to get out of the car because you got a flat tire to fix. And the getting in and out and wedging this on is really difficult as well. Sometimes you just forget it, and now you're going along thinking, man, where's my fresh air? And that's where that roof dock is key, because once you get to that muscle memory and that always put your hose up on the roof when you get out of the car, then you can reconnect it very simply, very easily. Just like where your seat belts are, where your Hans device is, and so it becomes muscle memory and it becomes a no-brainer.
And the nice thing too is, because I remember when I installed this device onto one of my old customers' helmets for the old company I was working with, it's really easy to install on the helmet. It's the 2 little Allen wrench, little Allen bolts. Just clamp it over the forced air piece on the helmet and screw it in.
That's
exactly right.
The way we designed it is that it fits on almost all helmets that have the standard barb size. And if it's not of standard, there are a few helmets out there that have a little different of a barb size, smaller, or some of them are elliptical, then we have an adapter for it as well.
Yeah.
Whether you use our adapter or you change the air applique that's on the helmet to a standard, and then our system works with it. So it's definitely been well received, and that's like Austen described earlier. It's been well received across many different race series, and in fact, there's one series in particular that's actually mandating it. So you can't go through tech unless you have a maglock on your helmet. And
what series is that?
It's GT Celebration.
Okay. Which is a new series actually that started 2020. It came to fruition at the end of 2019 for series,
right.
New series 2020 for people that have older GT3 cars that used to run in IMSA or Pro World Challenge. They now have a place to go run them. So that's awesome and key that, because it is an important part that if people are going to run
Correct.
air.
Yeah, it's and we've gone to one more time on that.
I was saying it's great that they implemented that in as a safety regulation for the forced air. Not only for the driver, but it also makes it, like you said earlier, for the corner workers, for the other safety personnel, for driver extraction.
Right. That's exactly what they wanted it for. I mean, they want to have a fun series. They don't want to have a problem or have to talk about how someone had a problem. And so they want to make it so that it's super simple for them to get you in and out of a car if necessary. And so therefore they made it standard. And we worked with them on pricing, and it turned out to be a great advantage for the drivers and a great marketing piece for us. Rob Morgan is the founder of GT Celebration, and we're going to do it again next year. So we may even bump it up a level and supply Fluid Logic to the series as well. And that because
And I mean,
chunk of their drivers are already using it as well and staying perfectly.
Yeah. And we'll get into Fluid Logic here in just one second, but what is the retail price on the Maglock so people could understand?
$189.
Yep. So the Maglock Air Kit is $189.95. That comes with everything that I showed you, the two parts, helmet side, hose side, comes with the roof dock, and then also there's a dust cap, keeps your helmet sealed up, comes with some hardware, some tools as well. And then if you have extra people driving your vehicle, you got a trophy truck with 4 or 5 drivers, then you can buy just this helmet part right here for $94.95. So you can set up all your drivers, can have Maglock, be Maglock compliant for the vehicle.
And the nice thing is you could have that as an amortized cost. It's not something you're going to be replacing every 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah,
and because of the high use of your car.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, actually, the reports from some of the drivers is it'll save their helmets at a nice paint applique. Instead of you forgetting and getting out, and it rips the barb out of your helmet and scratches all your paint up. Obviously, the Maglock will let go. And then if you get a new helmet or you got multiple helmets, you can just take that part. And like you said, 2 Allen screws loosen up, move it over to your new helmet for the next year, and you're ready to go with Maglock.
Sounds good. So then now the other project, and this is a project that when you first told me about it, again, 2.5 years ago now, how I was like, wow, that's pretty cool because it's a pretty much an all-in-one system. It's your air and water together. And, yes, I'm wearing the hat. I saw Ed and Austen in person last week and, got some swag. So, I'm going to represent it. The Fluid Logic. And
well, the nice thing about Fluid Logic is, and again, I credit Ricky Johnson with this, but when we were very well received with his first trophy truck team that we tested with RJ, and he came back and said, if you're going to get to market first, get to market with just Maglock Air and graduate later to Fluid Logic. The Maglock, once the people who have the confidence of the Maglock working for them, very easily became adopters to the Fluid Logic system because the Maglock, it's the same exact magnets, same exact strength. Parts look the same other than a small striping difference. They're striped in our corporate orange, but the inside of it is now coaxial. So through that same connection, Chris, you're moving air on the perimeter and water through the interior. So like you say, it's all in one now. So some of these drivers have air conditioning now through that pumper system. And so they're breathing cool air and they're also drinking cold water now. And that made a big difference as well. So they were already, these drivers, and a great deal of them were already used to the Maglock connection and trust. Now, introducing Fluid Logic next through the same connection was a pretty easy sell, let's put it that way.
Oh, I bet. And, because I know like with helmets, if before Fluid Logic, you had your air hose connection and then you had your water hose connection. So you're looking at 2 other things that pit crews have to hook up during pit change, driver changes during the pit stop, or you have to hook up by yourself because you're going out for a track day or this or that. And you have one over here, one down here, one behind here. And so when I saw the Fluid Logic system, I'm like, wow, that's ingenious. And and even, the price point on that, when you told me early price point, I think it was still a couple $100 more than what you're actually coming to market with it as.
Right.
And again, it's a system that is a total KISS method. Um, I know that one of my earliest podcast episodes I had with Dr. Ed Pokowitz, and we talked about driver hydration, prior and during and after racing.
Right.
And I know that you guys you mentioned that you're working with the university. Austin, I'll let you get in on that a little bit about Fluid Logic and really the benefits of staying hydrated inside the car. Sports car, NASCAR, you could be at ambient temperatures of anywhere from 120 to 180 degrees inside the car.
Very true. Very true.
So, I know Tony Stewart would say he'd get out and he'd lose 10 pounds of water weight during a race.
Yeah. Easy to do.
So,
Yeah. A couple layers of Nomex and not a lot of wind because you've got a windshield. Yeah, it's easy to do. And that's your body's own thermoregulator, is being able to sweat and have air go over your sweat and regulate your body, right? That's kind of your homemade radiating system. But now you got 2 layers of Nomex on, you don't have it anymore. So the right thing to do is to replenish your body at the same rate you'd normally be losing it. And that's what was impossible. And that was the aha moment for me. Was I raced the Baja 1000 in the arrive and drive sportsman's buggy division. And I had 12 hours behind the wheel for my segment. And I was nothing but frustrated. I could not drink while I was driving. I could only drink when I came in the pit. And that means I was over drinking. And that's not at all what my body wanted. I just had to take a piss afterwards, right? And then I was
exactly.
So I had so many distractions, just even, driving at night and at speed and trying to stay hydrated along the way. There has to be a better way to do this. And my section ended in La Paz, started in Catavina, ended in La Paz. And the next 2 days, I wrote out exactly what I was missing in that system. And then I drove home for 2 or 3 days, enjoyed my drive. And the whole way home, I was thinking exactly what I wanted. I put together a squawk list. I said, it's got to be hands-free connection with one hand. It's got to be programmable in advance of me getting in the car. It's got to be controlled burst of fluid, so I give my body exactly what it needs. I want to control the strength of it because I may not be in a windshield car. I may be in a car that's got an open cockpit. And it had to be able to read my biometrics. So I gave it a whole host of things, which were really, it was a list of impossible things because none of it was on the market. And the first thing we had to do was invent the maglock. That was the most important. And from there, we had to create a processor and a circuit board that would work via Bluetooth with your smartphone, your smart device, that would go through all these different parameters. And that's what's taken us 2.5, almost 3 years to perfect. And like Austen said earlier, now we're in full production of the product. We built 100 of the systems and we sold those specialist systems, those special edition systems, or gave them away to some key drivers. And once we saw the feedback from those systems that are out there, guys in NASCAR, Ricky Stenhouse, these kind of guys that bought these systems and gave us their feedback, that's when we said, okay, let's pull the trigger. Let's make this thing real. And that's what's gotten us to today. The great thing about the product, and you mentioned it earlier, is that it's all backed by science. We're the delivery of the fluid, but science tells you to stay adequately hydrated. You've got to drink nonstop, uninterrupted throughout your event. And that's exactly what this does. You delegate all the responsibility to hydration to us. You program it once you get in the car. And from that moment forward, the interface of our switch or your steering wheel, depends on what you're driving, it tells you when to drink. And you simply hit the button and drink that predetermined dose. And all you have to do is focus on your racing, and you can take your mind off of hydration.
If I'm not mistaken, the steering wheel button is actually kind of like a shift light where it'll kind of give you a light like, okay, come on, idiot, time to drink your water. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if you don't drink, if you're in a busy section and you think, okay, I know I'm supposed to drink, but I'm not dare taking my hands off the wheel, then drink the next time. It'll just it'll turn off and then it'll remind you again. And then if you got into the pit and you're thirsty while they're working on your car, you can even lay on the button. It'll override the program and it'll give you as much as you like. But the idea is to drink small bursts or a dose uninterrupted frequently. And it could be some of the studies we did at the University of Montana and their health wellness physiology were cyclists were drinking off our system every 30 seconds, and they were drinking milliliters, like 3 or 4 milliliters. That's a tablespoon, but they wanted it that fast. And then if their heart rate was going up because they were pedaling harder up a hill, then the system gave it to them very differently. And then once their heart rate was back down again, it went back to the original program. And that was very, very well received. We're doing a study right now with Dr. David Ferguson. I'll let you tell him that story.
Yeah, well, first I want to talk about the system because there's so many components to it, and there's a lot of things that are been able to happen that are happening not only because of the hard components, but also some of the tech that's inside the pod, inside the circuit board. But there is a lot of pieces, and the first thing that came out is that there can't be any compromise, right? Can't be I got to connect a line, or I got to screw on a hose, or I got to add an additional lead to my helmet. Is really what Ed had set out from the beginning, and that was the birth of the Maglock. But getting back to the Fluid Logic hydration system, what it is in a brief nutshell is it's a completely hands-free and thought-free hydration system that's completely backed by science. So we have all the hard components in place to allow you to push the button that's on your steering wheel, the Fluid Logic button, and hydrate at any speed, whether you're in La Paz in the Whoops and Baja or you're 240 miles an hour at Indianapolis. So everything is magnetic connections up to your helmet. You can see this here, just like the regular Maglock Air. This is now the coaxial Maglock Air. Sorry, the coaxial Maglock. So you have air and water running through your hose. You can see the insert inside there where the fluid runs through. And then on your helmet, you have the coaxial helmet side. Air runs through the perimeter, and then you connect and your water goes through the interior, just like that. So not an additional connection, doesn't require any interfacing with clips or plugs or bayonets. You connect your hose like I just did on the Maglock Air, and now you have air and water in that same connection.
And then the water hose, the water hose will actually just run through the top air hole of your helmet through the interior lining down into.
Correct. So on your air hose, you have your water line. We have a little hub piece that mounts on your hose, injects that water line into your air hose. Now it runs coaxially up to that coaxial hose side Maglock, and then connects onto your helmet, just like that. And then you can see here, this is my Bell RS7 helmet. And you can see that 4mm water line just continues in, goes through the pre-built-in air channel of the helmet. So you're not drilling a hole. You're not modifying the helmet structure in any way. Again, this is approved by NASCAR safety. This is approved by IndyCar safety. And this just plumbs in the factory cheek padding. Again, don't cut out any foam. Don't modify the helmet structure in any way, all the way down to your microphone. And on your microphone, you'll see that little right there that we call the Aquacom. So what this guy is it's a soft silicone, food-grade silicone piece that slides over your microphone. And we have different sizes for the different mic sizes as well. And then just like a cell phone case goes on your phone, now your water nozzle slides right on your microphone, and wherever you adjust your mic, your water is delivered right to your lips.
And it's nice because it gives you a nice, you press the button and it gives you a nice, powerful enough shoot where, you're not having to, bite on a clamp, a bite clamp mouthpiece, or try to, suck on a camelback piece or whatnot.
Yeah,
you can imagine all that, that the gymnastics of, okay, I've got to get the hose. And I mean, we've seen Jeff Gordon, in the early days where he would have that hole drill in his helmet, and he would put the hose into his mouth, which meant moving the microphone out of the way with his tongue, drink, but all the water that was in the hose down to the bladder had already gone back down to the bladder. So he had to really suck past a bunch of air to get to the water, and then push it back out again and pull his mic back into his favorite position in front of his face. I mean, all that nonsense, all that gymnastics is gone. It's right there and right now. Wherever you adjusted your mic for the best communication to your guys, to your crew, is exactly where you're drinking from. So that last final mile is what was key for this system. And it gets back to that original squawk list. It has to be seamless. It's got to be perfect in order for a driver to say, I delegate the responsibility of my hydration to Fluid Logic. Let it handle the whole thing.
No, and that's really key, especially when it does come to the amount of fluid your body needs to take and have in to be successful in, keeping your body cool and alert, and so many different aspects that hydration affects when you're in these tense, high temperature situations.
That's exactly right. And also everyone's different. So one of the beautiful things about the fluid logic system is that it's not just a passive push button hydration system. Going back to, it's a smart hydration system. So right here, this is our fluid logic pod. This is what mounts to a roll bar in the vehicle. You then plumb your reservoir, whether it be a igloo cooler or a drink bladder, into the system, and then it makes it a smart system all the way up. So your power goes in here, the button on your steering wheel plugs into here, or it also can integrate into your IndyCar wheel or your touring car wheel, depending on the level of vehicle. Or you can use the fluid logic button that comes in the kit as well. And then one unique thing about this is also, aside from our pump in here that builds 30 PSI, because of the number of our check valves that we have in the system, as well as you saw the micro size of our water lines that we're pumping through, we got a really high powered pump to be able to push through all that, deliver that crisp. But also you can pull out your iPhone and via Bluetooth connect to this and adjust all the parameters of your hydration. So for example, the dose amount, every time you hit that button, whether it be 5 milliliters or 15 milliliters, you can tune it up to what you best prefer for you and your person, as well as the pressure of the water coming through, how often you're reminded to hydrate. And that's all, again, through that button that's on your steering wheel, just like a shift light, blinks, illuminates every minute, minute and a half, whatever you pre-program via your iPhone to the pod. It remembers that, and then just passively reminds you every minute and a half, 2 minutes, time to hydrate, click it, get your dose, and that light goes away.
Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
For say endurance racing, they're during the 12 hours of Sebring this upcoming weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes weather and temperature changes plays a part in how your body reacts, especially to wanting to hydrate. You're in the car, you're in the middle of the stint. Does pit crew have the ability or the capability to adjust? Say you start your stint and it's 56 degrees, 60 degrees in the morning. By the time you're another stint, it's 75, 80 degrees, and you're wanting to have more water because of that extra heat. Can the pit crew adjust that on the fly for you while you're in the middle of your stint?
They only could if they were within Bluetooth range. Typically what we'd see currently is that the person will get acclimated to the system. Obviously, leading up to the event, they put the system in the car, they start practicing with it, they start learning their hydration needs. A lot of teams have a doctor with them, sometimes a nutritionist or a hydration coach they might even have. They're very a top level team, and that can help better tune their hydration profile. Now, what's going on right now, we touched about a little bit, the clinical trial going on at Michigan State University, and we touched on the system where it actually actively changes your hydration based on your biometric feedback in real time. So that's also coming out in the future. And what we're doing right now at Michigan State University is we're using, in a controlled environment, controlled room, on a simulator, a very high level simulator, with the fluid logic hydration system and with a myriad of biometric feedback, data monitoring, data logging. Everything's being logged. It is a clinical trial consisting of professional, active race car drivers. So we have A-level IndyCar guys. Unfortunately, we can't list any of them because the study is ongoing and active, but the names will be released once the study concludes. There'll be a write-up on it all. And what it's consisting of is A-level IndyCar, NASCAR, sports car, a whole myriad of ages as well, whole gamut of ages, I should say. Drivers in a controlled room, 2 days, 2 day study. Driver comes in 1 day with logic, 1 day without logic, and everything from your heart rate variability, core temperature, skin temperature, sweat salinity, sweat content, eye tracking, data logging, pressure sensors on the pedals, everything's being logged to show, hopefully, that drinking scientifically more frequently every couple of minutes, staying hydrated while in your event makes you a better driver. Not just that you feel better, but also that the data, both in your heart and inside your body, matches up with the performance on the sim or on the track.
No, and such a good point, because if you think about what your body's made of, the majority of our body is made up of water.
Yeah.
So if you're diluting that water or letting it, escape your body, via sweat or, whatnot during races, then you're going to start affecting every single part of your system. What, you
Absolutely.
know, your
Yeah.
neurological, your everything, you know, all
Yeah,
your
your
senses
heart
are going
rate
to
is
get.
low, hydrated. I was going to say the clinical trials we've done so far, the physiology results were that your heart rate is lower by as much as 10 beats per minute if you're adequately hydrated. That's a big difference when you're behind the wheel.
Oh, absolutely.
Your recovery rate, is half the time. So if you're running a stint and then you got to get back in the car again in 2-3 hours, your recovery is key. Um, your um, your ability to process is enhanced. Your vision is enhanced. I mean, you can imagine everything that gets better if you're pinging on all 8 cylinders internally, as opposed to being slightly dehydrated. And once you slip into dehydration, it's very fast. It goes downhill very, very rapidly. And you see that. You see drivers getting out of cars and they're spent. You know,
Yeah, and and then the problem is people think they're dehydrated, so they start chugging water to try to, catch up for all that past dehydration. And that's actually doing more damage because your body's being, rushed with that fluid that it doesn't know necessarily how to react with
straight through
it.
your stomach to your kidneys, and now you got to stand in line to take a piss. It's exactly what your body doesn't want. So that's why this is key, because like I said earlier, once you trust the system and you delegate the responsibility of hydration to the system, and when that light goes on, you drink. And if you couldn't drink at that moment, you drink it a moment later. Once you get into that consistent fashion, then all of a sudden you stay at that peak level that you want to be. You enhanced your performance, you're at an optimal output, and you stay there during your entire event. Some
No,
people,
absolutely.
some of our drivers, like Ricky Johnson in particular, he doesn't even like to have the button go on. It's one of the options that you can, your phone, just don't have the light come on. I know when I want to drink, I'm going to lay on it when I want to. Some people like Tom Hawker and even Mr. Slavic, they like to control how bright their button is. If they're doing a 24-hour race or 12-hour endurance race,
Yeah.
they don't want it really bright at night and staring at them either. So they can bring down the brightness of that. And when they're going through a driver change, which takes obviously a little bit of time, as long as the crew chief is there, he can use their iPad or smart device to make the adjustment, because one driver may want a completely different program than the next driver.
See, I think I might have just thought of your new product. Build a reader system into the helmet piece that connects to the fluid logic piece. So you program the helmet connector, saying, okay, this is driver A, this is what they want for their fluid.
Right.
Driver B, this is what they want for their fluid. Driver C, this is what they want for their fluid. So you don't have to change it every time. It's already programmed into the helmet, and then they're ready to go.
And I'm glad you picked up on that. We've done something similar, Chris, and I'm glad you picked up on that. But the beauty of our system is it's technology, right? You would expect the system to be like this. You wouldn't just expect it to be a button and a pump just bursting water at you. You would expect it to have technology. You're sitting in a very expensive technology race car in a technology industry. So we've yet to unfold or reveal the rest of our app, and the rest of the app goes into things just like that. So you can imagine our job is to take this from motorsports to human sports and beyond. If we can make a better race car driver, we can certainly make a better soldier. We can make a better Marine.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's our job, and for that we made a very robust app and a very technology driven and robust circuit board and processor inside that. So we will reveal more as time goes on, and more advantages for the drivers to use. This first version is already miles ahead of anything that's on the market or
absolutely
on the market. So we're releasing this now. The product is available at the end of this month, which is exciting for us. It's taken some time to get there, but we're in full swing with production right now. But as time goes on, we will offer more advancements. Some of them have been companies that have come to us. I won't mention names, but well-known companies that have come to us and said, we would like to be the biometric device that these athletes are wearing that communicates with your system and then delivers them the fluids that they need. And that's where it gets into, okay, that's driver A. Driver B gets in Bluetooth wireless right to our system, and it says, hey, I'm driver B, and you already know my program. So that's exactly where the future is for this.
That's awesome. And what's the price on the Fluid Logic?
Yeah, so the Fluid Logic system there's actually two different iterations of it. So the coaxial system, which you saw on my helmet, that comes with the coaxial mag lock for the air connection, that sells for $12.95. And then the Flush 360 system, so this is what you see all the Andretti cars using, from Ryan Hunter-Reay all the way down to Alexander Rossi. So this piece actually, this piece and part of the system retails for $11.95. It's called the Flush 360. It quickly and easily attaches onto the side of the helmet. So it uses 3M VHB, same stuff that you stick your GoPro down to the hood of your race car with. And then still the Flush 360 magnetic connection, same maglock technology, just shrunk down, turned 90 degrees. And then this water line comes right underneath and goes straight into your aquacom right there.
Okay.
So there's two different options. So both systems come with the pod, obviously, the buttons, all the plumbing and wiring to integrate it into the vehicle. Again, it doesn't matter if it's an Indy car or a trophy truck or anything in between. And then two different iterations of the system, how we get it down to the driver's helmet. Of course, you have the coaxial, so you have the air in the water for your forced air drivers. And then if you don't have a forced air system, or you elect not to use the forced air system for whatever reason that might be, you can then use the Flush 360. So this part right here sticks onto the side of your helmet, 3M VHB. So again, no modification, no drilling to the helmet in any way. And then a little 4mm water line comes right underneath here, plugs right into your aquacom, and then you're ready to go on your, and then for your hose, comes up through the hose side of the Flush 360, 6mm super small line, and then same maglock technology, spins around 360 degrees, doesn't matter the orientation, and that same safety breakaway as well.
Gotcha. Now, here's a question for you. Since a lot of the, well, now it's required in IndyCar because they have the aero screen, the drivers are wearing the, their own Air Force systems as well. Why would they, would they use the Flush 360 compared to using the top mount coaxial system?
It's a good question.
Yeah, so because in IndyCar, the Andretti's actually use both. They use maglock air on their air hose, and they use the Flush 360 on the front of their helmet to get their hydration. And there's a couple of unique reasons why they do so. The first one is that they're laying down in their vehicles, so they're really constrained with the type of air appliques and the type of components they can affix to their helmets, purely because of their position in the vehicle. And then the second is that because they're not using a forced air system, they need every single piece of efficiency that they can gain through their air hose. So they only have a small scoop that simply ducts in the ambient air velocity. So if they're going around in a yellow, they're hardly getting any air in through their helmet, let alone when they're going 240 miles an hour, then they're getting a marginally enough air just to keep them cool.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to put anything that would restrict the airflow into the helmet. And then of course they have to get their hydration. So they get their hydration through the Flush 360, and then they get their safe, quick connection and are compliant with the quick connection rules that are required in IndyCar for their air hose using maglock air.
Oh, beautiful. So Austen, Ed, you guys have been great. You got us lots of information for, to help share this product. I love to take the time at the end of the show to give you guys the time, say you're standing on the top of the podium at Baja, or, standing at the top of the podium somewhere, and it's your time to go in and say, thank you to whoever you guys need to thank, and share whatever you want to share. If you guys want, if you have social media, or how people could find you guys, and learn more about Fluid Logic, Maglock, and where to get it.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us on the show.
And meeting you all those years ago, and we met you.
And thank you to all the viewers. I know it's a lot of components. It's a completely new system. It's a solution to a problem that everyone has. A lot of people haven't heard of it or seen it, and there's a lot of components in it, so it can be a little overwhelming going through all the revolutionary. You've got 27 plus patents that are in that box. When you order your Fluid Logic system. So I definitely encourage people to check out fluidlogic.com. You can get a lot more rundown videos of the system, component layouts, and things like that. And then for Maglock Air, you can obviously visit maglock.com as well.
And we do a lot of people to thank. We had a lot of people who were us early on, people we've mentioned in the race car series, people Mr. Hawker, Mr. Slavic, Kelly Collins, people like that were very willing to test the system, right up to John Langley in off-road racing from Kopp's team. And probably the biggest thanks to Ricky Johnson for all the doors that he opened for us and all the people that he brought in through his off-road racing experience and the people that he knows. Literally, the list goes on, and working directly with the Andretti's is probably at the top of the list as well. I mean, they were really open to having us solve their hydration issue. I mean, you might have spent a week or 2 weeks out there with them, and we were very, very well received, and it's been a real pleasure to work in this market, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Guys, well, thanks again for your time. Go check them out, fluidlogic.com, maglock.com. Are you guys on social media at all, or?
Yep, you can check us out, Maglock USA, as well as Fluid Logic USA on Instagram and Facebook as well.
All right, guys, go check it out. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Uber to the Pits. Also, if you have any questions, you can send us an email at info@ubertothepits.com. And also, just to let you know, our sponsor partner here on the show, the Racer Safety Source, is also a place where you can find Maglock and Fluid Logic. And if you have any questions, we can get those answers for you through them. Guys, thank you so much again for your time, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.